Hello everyone. In this video, we are going to talk about the concepts of standard input, standard output, and standard error. So what are these terms? Let's talk about them. So standard input is something that we provide to our command. So whatever input our command takes, that is considered as a standard input, and it's represented numerically with 0 and symbolically with less than symbol. Then we have second term as standard output. Standard output is something which is the outcome of the command. Whatever output you are getting from a command, it is called as standard output, and it can be represented with number 1 or a greater than symbol. If you want to manage it, you can manage it using this greater than symbol. The third term is standard error. So if we run a command and we get an error, that thing is called as standard error. So these three terms are very, very important. And how can we represent standard error is using a numeric value of 2 and 2 greater than. So symbolically, we can represent it as 2 greater than. So in order to manage these standard input output error, we have similar symbols that can help you. So we have this less than symbol, we have this greater than symbol, and we have this 2 greater than symbol. So let's understand the concept of it, because in the last session, when we were using cron jobs, we got a string in the end, which looks something like this one. So what is the meaning of this string? That is what we are going to understand in this video. So before that, you need to understand the concepts of standard input, output, and error. So let's open our terminal. And over here, let's run some commands. So we already know that if we have to read a file, we can specify cat command followed by the name of the file. Let's say I want to read file 123.txt, so you can get the contents of it. Same thing you can do with the help of the standard input. You know that this particular file is the input that we are providing to this command. So if we want to provide an input to such a file, then we can use something like this, cat less than, and then we can specify the file name. It will also show you the same thing. So this is how you manage standard input. But more importantly, it's very important to manage standard output and standard error. So let's talk about it. Suppose that I'm using a command, which is whoami, and if I hit enter, you can see the output of it. So this output is also known as standard output. And if I want to put this output in a file, I do not want this output to be shown on my screen. I want this output to be stored somewhere in a file. Then I can just type the name of the file with this greater than symbol, which is representing over here standard output. So if you want to manage standard output, managing means you will not be able to see the output on your screen. You are managing the output and you are storing it in a different file. So this is known as this managing standard output using this symbol, which is greater than. Now, if you read this file, you will find that you have this output stored in this file. We have already seen the practical for it. How we can manage standard error? Let's say I'm running a command here. I've made some mistakes in this command and I hit enter. You can see that I can see the error. Now this is error. This is not the output. This is the error. If you want to manage this error, you can tell it like in which file you want to save it. So let's try to save it in a file with the name as error.txt. So what will happen in this case, you will not see the output because the output has been saved in this file. If we read this file, you will find the same output or the same error basically, which was coming from this command. So if you want to manage the error, you can use 2 greater than symbol to manage the error. Now if we come back to this particular thing that is mentioned here. So over here, we are trying to manage the output and we are trying to store it in a file, which is a magical file on our Linux operating system. This file is also known as null file, which is stored in /dev/null. And why it's the magical file? Because this file will not store anything on your machine. Means this file will always remain empty. Let me show you. If I try to read this file, we will find empty content. If I try to put something in this file, let's say I want to put something randomly into this file. If you read the file again, you can see that it's still empty. So this file will always remain empty, and that is why the name of the file is null. Null means empty. So we are just trying to put the output of a command into this null file so that we cannot see it. We are trying to manage it. This is representing the standard error. And we are specifying that the error also we want to manage, and we are putting the error in the same place where we are putting the output. This ampersand symbol is a separator here. If we do not provide a separator, what will happen? The output will be stored in the null file and the error will be stored in a file with the name as 1. Over here, 1 is not the name of the file. 1 is this number which is representing standard output. So that is why we have to put a separator here, which will separate and consider it as the standard output's representation, not the file name as 1. So overall, what will happen is this particular command will put the output in the null file as well as the error in the same location where output is stored, which is the null file, so that you cannot see any kind of thing on your screen. And why we are inputting everything, or why we are redirecting everything in the null file, because null file doesn't store anything on your system. If you want to store these things, you can provide the file name, something like this, like I can specify output.txt for putting the output, and for error I can specify something like error.txt. But if you do not want to put the output and error in a file, then you can specify this specific thing where you have specified the null file in which nothing can be stored. So that is the whole objective of specifying this thing. This same thing can also be representing something like this, can also be written like this. So what will happen here? Here the error is going to be redirected into the null file, and then the output is going to the same location where error is going. So it means that both error and output are being saved in this file, which is null. So this is the whole objective of using this specific symbols and characters in the end of the cron job, so that cron job can run properly without any output and error. And if we have managed everything, then that will help the cron jobs to show the output and run the command properly. But if you have not managed the output and error, then it will be a problem. So this is all. And if you want to give it a try, we can try it with the help of find command. Let me show you. If you switch to the Kali user and run the find command on all over the system, let's say I want to find a file with the name as file. If I hit enter, if I press Ctrl C, you can see you are getting a lot of errors. These permission denied. And if you do not want to see these errors, what you can do is in the end, you can type something like this. You are managing the error. Now in this situation, you will only find the output, but not the error, because you have managed the error and you have stored it in the null file. You can see now you're just getting the output, not the error. If you want to do vice versa and want to see errors, then you can remove this 2 from here. What will happen is it will put all the output in this null file and will show you the errors on. So this is how you can see practically the implementation of standard input, standard output, and standard error, which is a great concept to know, because in future we're going to run many commands like these, and these commands will generate a lot of errors and output. If you want to manage those output and error for cron jobs or for any specific command like find, you can use these specific concepts of standard input, output, and error. So I hope that this concept is clear to you guys. So that is all for this video.
If you want to join the live practical focus training on Kali Linux, then you can contact us on the number shown on the screen.